I tried to become a world record holder by speedrunning MyGM in WWE 2K23. The rules of this speedrun are simple. You must play on the hardest difficulty settings and you must win the season. The timer starts as soon as we press start draft, so the draft process and all of the thought that goes into that is included, and the clock only stops when the Slammy Awards pop up at the end. We have to win on both trophies and fans. 25 weeks, the hardest difficulty, and an incredibly tough time to beat. The record stands at 42 minutes and 41 seconds from a guy called Prunk44. He's playing on PC, which I believe would be faster than what I'm playing on, PS5. So would I even have a chance here? I was willing to give it my best shot. This is the story of how I tried to become a speedrun world record holder. And if you want to be featured in one of our upcoming videos, watch to the end for more information. Before the draft and the start of the speedrun, I started by selecting Tyler Breeze as my GM, and NXT 2.0 was the brand I chose to represent. I'll explain these decisions shortly. One of these was a controversial choice, to say the least. First, let's talk about my opponent. I went for Kurt Angle because his power card doesn't have the ability to mess with whatever I'm doing. If we went up against GMs like Mick Foley or Xavier Woods, they could injure or steal members of my roster, and whilst it would probably be easy enough to deal with on the whole, it would require additional thinking time from me. The number one thing I needed to focus on in this challenge was removing thinking time. The same logic went into picking Kurt Angle's brand, WCW. If he'd been Raw, he would get to veto 3 of my roster in 1 week, and that would be messy and take time to think about getting around. We could talk in detail about who I drafted, but after the draft, I still had no idea who I'd actually drafted. I select almost entirely on attributes, not name. Ironically, that's the name of the game in MyGM, and this was true more than ever in this speedrun. All I did was filter by stamina and made sure I was drafting for multiple rivalries. For example, if I drafted a heel bruiser in the male division, I knew I'd need to draft another heel bruiser in the male division, because then I could draft 2 face fighter rivals and I'd be able to switch the rivalries around once they were on cooldown. I also wanted to get a heel and face specialist in the male and female divisions to further assist with this strategy. I rushed through the draft but immediately had a huge obstacle to overcome, one that I'd forced on myself. Like I said a little earlier, I chose NXT 2.0 and this was a little bit controversial. This is because NXT 2.0 would allow me to sign 3 free agents at a half price discount, and this is stupidly overpowered. But why was it a huge obstacle for me? Well, I was trying to eliminate thinking time wherever I could. By selecting NXT 2.0 and using this power card, I already signed myself up for extra thinking time. I'd need to look through the randomly generated free agent pool and try to sign more superstars that could be a good fit with the roster I'd already built, a roster that I built in record time and could barely remember because it was all a blur. I signed my 3 free agents and picked up a couple of jobbers to make sure I could always fill out a card and rotate for stamina if needed. My first week took a little bit of time. I needed to make sure I was getting some new champions to boost their popularity with title matches and lining up the right rivalries. If rivalries developed in week 1, then it would make booking future weeks a little easier, as it would help me auto-fill the match with their rival whenever I selected a superstar to appear. We crowned new champions with men's tag team, women's tag team and North American title matches and took an early but important lead. That brings me on to my overall strategy for this. Whilst it would be a difficult challenge as is due to insane time restraints, my idea was to try to build up an early lead, as big as possible, if it was even possible. If I could do this, it would allow me to auto-fill some of the later weeks in the season and then try to focus on fixing whatever was needed at premium live events. But there's a long way to go before that. And building an early lead would be extremely hard when I had 0 time to spend looking at commissioner goals or anything like that, meaning I'd be lacking power cards, and I probably wouldn't have time for looking at power cards at all in the store or applying a whole load of power cards anyway. In week 2, both Edge and Drew Gulak had demanded rematches with last week's opponents. I threw them all into a fatal 4-way immediately. My plan here with superstar promises and requests was to deliver on them as soon as possible every time, as long as I remembered. And I'm sure I would probably forget promises from time to time, so how many problems would this go on to cause me throughout the run? I guess we'll find out. I was then hit with an early reminder that this challenge would be far from easy. Kurt Angle and WCW wiped the floor with me this week, beating me by 8,000 fans, and they took the lead. To top it off, Kurt Angle then applied a double cost card to me to make booking my next week's show even trickier. I upgraded my arena, something I forgot to do last week, which is probably why Kurt Angle destroyed me, as we were still fighting in a high school gym when we absolutely didn't need to be, and I focused on putting on a better show this week with a bit of variety. It didn't work too well. We matched WCW in the ratings and they still had the lead. So much for this strategy of building an early lead to make all of this as easy as possible. Not to worry though, we won the week by around 5,000 fans in week 4 and regained the most slender of leads, just 290 fans, which might be the smallest lead I've ever seen at any stage of any season. We headed into our first premium live event, Survivor Series, in first place. I nearly forget to upgrade the logistics again, which would have been a huge mistake. I can't imagine a huge PLE like Survivor Series taking place in a high school gym, but fortunately I check it at last minute to deliver the huge result of a loss of 8,000 fans to compared to WCW, and we're back into second place. It wasn't a total disaster though. I'd only burned one rivalry, I had future rivals lined up, and I had some good rivalries cooking as well. I knew exactly why my weeks weren't doing that well too. My match diversity was almost non-existent. Most weeks were 3 normal matches and perhaps a tables match in the main event. But this was all intentional in my master plan. I needed to preserve as much stamina as possible because I didn't want to constantly be on the lookout for new additions to the roster, and hopefully we'd start to see the rewards of this patient approach soon. Edge and Bobby Lashley did need a break though, as they were one rivalry that I'd pushed in the opening weeks of the season. I stuck to my guns, and against all odds, I triumphantly lost week 6 again. A huge uphill task ahead as we slipped further behind. In week 7, I put on a tag match, a triple threat, and 2 singles matches, and I mixed up the promos some more. And I lost again by around 7,000 fans, and now I had a 30,000 fan deficit to overcome. What is going on? It's okay. One good week at a PLE could turn this all around, and the most important thing was that my time was relatively good. 13 minutes in, and we'd already completed 7 weeks plus the time-consuming draft process. I knew I could do this still, even if my optimism was quickly drained even more, as I was reminded of a promise I'd already forgotten to keep for a rematch. Week 8 would be a must-win week. If I didn't do well here, I'd probably have to restart the run. I see that I owe Reggie a match with Bobby Lashley, so I immediately throw him in, so not to annoy anyone else. My plan didn't deviate too much, mostly singles matches, a tag match, mostly normal matches, and it finally worked out. We didn't have a great week, but WCW had their first stinker, gaining just 36,000 fans. I knew they'd have some stinkers eventually, and the good thing is that I've not really had a good week yet myself, and I would definitely have good weeks. I was just biding my time. Finally, I had the sign that this season was genuinely winnable if I persevered. The speedrun record might not be, it would be incredibly tight, but the season win was definitely possible. If I could win the season, I could win the speedrun. Maybe. The final week before our second PLE, SummerSlam, and we knocked it out the park with a 16,000 fan increase over WCW. Not only that, I earned a special promotion power card that would give us an increased fan retention rate in the week that it was used. I planned to play it immediately at SummerSlam so that I didn't need to think and remember about using it later. My SummerSlam card was my best yet. An Extreme Rules opener, a backstage brawl main event, and multiple rivalries boiling over at level 4. Special promotion card applied as well. This would be my week and I knew it. I gained 164,000 fans, WCW gained just 116,000, putting me firmly into the lead and giving me a huge edge in this world record attempt for the very first time. Especially if I wanted to start spamming the autofill button and leave my shows down to the AI, which is a huge risk as they ignore stale rivalries, they put tired superstars into big match stipulations, and they do other terrible things too. And to warn me of the dangers that could come if I get too complacent, WCW smashed a 72,000 fan increase in week 11. Kurt Angle had a special promotion card of his own up his sleeve. The gap between the two brands sat at 23,000, and that is way too close for comfort at this stage, especially when I've got people like Otis demanding a main event appearance this week. It's alright though, Otis delivered the goods with his performance, and week 12 went by without any stress in the results. Week 13 was more of the same, even though I had to start paying bonuses to people like Bobby Lashley because they're getting a little bit too big for their boots. I just don't have time to deal with the fallout if they start kicking off afterwards, and I added local legends Trent Shaw and Red Monsoon to my roster, and week 14 was mostly uneventful even if we did take a 2,000 fan defeat in the week. Heading into our third PLE, Extreme Rules, I had a lead of 26,000 fans. Knowing that my strength against the AI lies in premium live events, I expected to really kick on at this point and hopefully put things in cruise control when it came to auto booking. But Kurt Angle had other ideas, attacking me with a veto star card, blocking my most popular superstar, Rhea Ripley, from appearing at our PLE. This was a sucker punch to our chances. The good news is that I'd done really well budget-wise to this point thanks to sticking to low-cost match stipulations, meaning money was never really an issue for me. My stamina saving strategy had been having this knock-on financial benefit that I hadn't really accounted for in my plans. With 2 tables matches, a backstage brawl, and even a Hell in a Cell main event, this was my biggest week of the season so far, and I needed it to be good. We get an amazing booking rating, our show had lots of diverse match types, and we gained just 140,000 fans, and WCW gained 145,000. For f***'s sake. I guess there's no cruise control anytime soon. I'm winning, but there's no way I could let the AI take over my decisions at this point. I'd have to continue with the slower process of manually selecting every match type and logistical upgrade for as long as I could. I knew I still had a chance at this point, but chances were getting slimmer by the minute, literally. Week 16 was a bad card. Needing to recover stamina, I just went for 4 normal match types. Somehow it actually worked out and I won the week, but it wouldn't all be good news. Kurt Angle continued to attack me, vetoing my women's champ Rhea Ripley for a second time in just a few weeks. She'd have to sit out next week and we'd be missing our most popular star yet again. But still, a bumper card with both a tag match and a triple threat led to a 61,000 fan increase, which was 13,000 more than WCW. My lead stood at 25,500 fans at this point, which might sound comfortable, but that can change in a single week or especially a single premium live event. I've seen 70,000 plus fan swings at PLEs before, so 25,000 really is nothing. I'd have to keep my thinking cap on and just try to concentrate as well as I could. But with the pace I was going at, mistakes were still very likely to happen. In week 18, we extended our lead by another 12,000 fans. I earned a Veto Star card, which I decided to immediately apply to Kurt Angle, and I see that I'd also earned a Veto Champ card from a different week, and I applied that one too. 2 stars would be missing from WCW this week, that's payback. It should be an easy victory this week with that in mind. I sent Edge off to the spa to recover some stamina, and we cruised to an 11,000 fan increase. Now it's time for our final PLE before WrestleMania, and it's Backlash. If all goes to plan, this would be my final week of booking before the last week of the season, and I go big. It's an Extreme Rules opener, a TLC in the middle of the card, a triple threat in there for good measure, and Hell in a Cell for the women's title in the main event. Rhea Ripley deserves the spotlight after Kurt kept targeting her, and she delivered a 5-star match as a result. It was an amazing week for NXT 2.0 overall. With 5 weeks to go, my lead was now 96,000 fans. I decided to book week 21 to be safe. I'd hate for the computer to screw this up for me at this stage. The time was still incredibly tight, but the win in the season and the speedrun world record were both in reach. I put the effort in to make sure it was a good one, with 2 tag team matches, an Extreme Rules and a tables match, and WCW, licking their wounds a little bit at this point, were blown out of the water, and I got another 14,000 fan increase. It was time to start spamming the autobook button. My lead was 110,000, which felt unassailable, but would I be made to regret the decision to autobook every single week and fall flat at the final hurdle? All I'd need to do was book the logistics and click autobook on each week's show. I'd need to fill in the promos myself, but I plan to not even look at the results in order to do things as quickly as possible. I autobooked 3 consecutive weeks, though I did tweak the card ever so slightly in places, and I planned to just look at how bad the damage was before booking WrestleMania myself. Things were already going wrong after week 23. Reggie came to tell me that I didn't deliver on my promise with him again. Obviously he doesn't understand that this is a speedrun and we don't have time for complaining. We autobook again. I can see that the computer is getting a little bit freaky with the likes of TLC and Tornado tag matches, but I'm willing to roll with it at this point. With just 1 week to go, I can see that I'm miles ahead. The season win was almost certainly in the bag. I just need to book WrestleMania as fast as I could and the speedrun world record would be mine. In hindsight, I was extremely foolish here. I still wanted to put on a good show with lots of variety and packed out promos. I didn't know at this point that the lead was as big as 90,000 fans. If I did, I could have been so much quicker. Was this going to cost me the world record? I got an amazing booking. I gained 265,000 fans, which was 61,000 more than WCW, to absolutely crush them in the season overall, and I progressed to the Slammy Awards as fast as I could to lock in my time. The record to beat was 42 minutes and 41 seconds, and my time, 40 minutes and 51. I'm officially an extremely niche world record holder, but a world record holder nonetheless by 1 minute and 50 seconds. And I could have been quicker. I know I could. I guess it's over to all of you watching. Can you beat my time and dethrone me from the top of the world leaderboard? My full, unedited run is linked in the description below for any nerd out there that wants to verify the legitimacy. If you want to be featured in a MyGM challenge of ours, join the Discord link in the description below for more information. Lots of people will be involved and it will be a fun one. If you enjoyed this video, you'll find one of our other challenges a lot more entertaining. I've put one on screen for you to watch next.